My name's Gary. I'm the sales director at LBG Medical, and kind of the next 45 minutes to an hour is going to guide you through some of the new products that kind of LBG have on offer. So we'll be talking through our latest one, Kinetic, and then a few that we kind of launched last year. I have got a presentation on the screen, but each time I talk about a new product, I'll display the presentation for a few seconds, and then I'll kind of take it offline so that you can kind of see the product in a little bit more detail. There is a Q&A element, so we will do a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So if at the top of Teams you've got a chat icon and a Q&A icon, if you can put the questions ideally in the Q&A, we'll kind of get to those at the end of the session. So the first product I'm going to introduce you to is our newest product. So this product was launched this month, so April. So it's a brand new product launch for us, and it's our Kinetic insole. So it's for us a little bit of kind of a hybrid between your Bio Advanced and your Bio Soft, if you're familiar with both of those products. So it uses essentially an EVA shell in two different densities. So we've got a medium density grey and we've got a high density orange. It then over the top will utilize a polyurethane based top cover. So a little bit of that EVA is kind of reduced, and then through the midpoint and into the forefoot, you get an eco-friendly polyurethane. Outside of that, you've also got a metatarsal plug. So traditionally our Bio Advanced has always had a met plug in the full length, a met and ray plug in the 3/4 length, but we've extended that cutout kind of on our Kinetic. So Kinetic's great for kind of that functional hallux limitus patient, the patient that you want to drive that kind of big toe function into kind of correct gait. Everyone's met head can sit slightly differently kind of across the patients that you would see. So ultimately you've got different graded areas that you can kind of pull out. So you can take just the top portion, you could take the middle two portions, you could take the bottom two portions. So the plug's fully adjustable depending on where that patient's met head sits. Like the regular family of Bio Advanced and our shells themselves, all the device is heat moldable. So again, you've got your heat indicator in the arch profile. So again, if you're wanting to heat mold the shell, increase that arch profile, you can. If you want to heat mold the shell and lower that arch profile, you can. As with all of our EVA products, the entire device is heat moldable. So if you've got a wider footed patient or a narrower footed patient, you can obviously heat up that lateral border and flare it out. Same with kind of that heel cut, again, around the lateral aspect of the heel cut or that medial aspect of the heel cut. You're not just limited to kind of heat molding the arch profile. You've got full autonomy over control where you kind of want that control to be. As well as kind of having the PU in the forefoot, we then come on to your heel. So again, we've got a PU based heel. So again, targeted shock absorption. So again, if you've got patients that are heavy heel strikers, you may be looking to decelerate that heel strike a little bit more. It utilizes PU in the heel rather than being EVA based like the Bio Advanced. You have also again got a removable plug if you're looking for a little bit more of a targeted area for that heel to drop down into. As I said, two densities. So the first one I've got here is your medium density, and then we've also got your high density. For clinicians that are used to our Bio Advanced range, the densities differ ever so slightly. So what I would say is the medium density Kinetic sits between kind of the low and the medium density Bio Advanced, whereas your high density Kinetic will sit between a medium density and a high density Bio Advanced. So firm is not quite as firm as the current firm density in the Bio Advanced, hence the kind of launching two densities rather than the full three densities. Like the rest of the family, and kind of, I suppose, unique to LBG, is we offer a full adaptation pack as well. So typically, I'll just share my screen again. So typically, like Bio Advanced and BioMex Biofusion, they come with a bag of components, and your components that will be listed will be two of the blue PPT cushions. You'll get 2-degree rear foot posts, you'll get 4-degree rear foot posts, and you'll get your 5mm heel raises. So ultimately, you've got variation in depending on whether you're looking to add medial posting, whether you're looking to add lateral posting. You've also got that option to add a 5mm heel raise, whether that heel raise is being used for leg length discrepancy, or you've got a patient that has a bout of Achilles tendonitis and you're just looking to elevate that heel slightly. Typically, obviously, intended uses, question kind of around density, it comes back to, so weight to a certain degree, but the real kind of indicator of what you're choosing in terms of density comes down to your supination resistance test. So how easy it is to resupinate the foot. Typically, the easier it is to resupinate the foot, the lower the density, more flexible the shell you can go for. The harder it is to resupinate that foot, the firmer the density that you go for. All of the top covers, again, utilize the same top cover that is on the Bio Advanced. So it's that antimicrobial top cover. So in terms of kind of damp cloth, wipe clean, it's still suitable and applicable to the Biokinetic insole. So Bioactive, we launched in November last year. This kind of fits into kind of our rigid shell family. So ultimately, it uses a very similar shell or nylon shell, the same as the Biomex device. The main difference with Bioactive over, say, Biomex is that it's a fully finished device. So where a lot of you will be familiar with Biomex or Biofusion, obviously those come as a bare shell option, and then you can add the top cover separately. Bioactive will come with a full-length, eco-friendly polyurethane top cover as standard. So it utilizes the Biomex shell in more of the purple, flexible density, and more through the medium arch profile. As it's aimed at a little bit more of an active patient group, we've kind of taken the heel cup down a little bit, so it has a lower profile heel cup. It also has a neutral heel post, following the family of kind of Biomex. So again, the nice thing about the neutral element is that we can treat it both from a medially posted option and a laterally posted option. The PU obviously offers longevity, so where traditional EVA top covers may bottom out, wear away over time, also not overly susceptible to getting water, or if it's going in a football boot, rugby boot, runners and they're running through puddles, we know that EVA top covers can break up over time. So the PU element is a little bit more water friendly. Again, it can be wiped clean. It's not going to kind of absorb the water like a typical EVA device will. You've then got a few other features kind of built into the base of the shell. So we've got a Poron 94 heel spot. So again, similar to what I talked about from a kinetic perspective, whether we're looking to decelerate heel strike and targeted heel spur, you just want a cushion into the heel. It uses the Poron 94 memory foam built throughout the heel. You'll also notice at the base of the device, we've built in a first met cutout as standard. So again, patients have that functional hallux limitus. We're looking to drive off through the big toe joint. You've got that built into the shell as standard. So rather than having to trim it out or grind it out as historically kind of clinicians have done with Biomex and Biofusion, this kind of gives you already built into the shell. It's as low bulk as we can get it into the forefoot. So you'll kind of see that it is kind of 5mm through the mid portion, and then it tapers off into the forefoot, and it's beveled all of the way around the edge. So again, even fitting into your football boots, rugby boots, it should fit into low profile footwear. It obviously has an active name by nature, but ultimately, again, it can be used for all the same conditions that BioAdvanced could be used for, or a Biokinetic could be used for. It's just we've aimed it more at kind of an active group, purely based on kind of the top cover, the shock absorbency, known for kind of that more high impact sport. But the way that kind of the customization can be done means you can use it for that variety of clinical conditions. So as I mentioned, it does have a neutral rear foot post. Obviously, you can post directly over the rear foot as is, but what's better to kind of use is we've developed a 0-degree rear foot stabilizer. So the 0-degree stabilizer is only about 1.5mm thick through its thickest point, so it doesn't inadvertently add a heel raise. But what it will do is then it gives you a much wider surface area to be able to post over the top of. So by adding your 0-degree stabilizer, you can then add any additional posting. So if we're adding a 2-degree post, we can then pop that over the top, and you've got a 2-degree medial posted device at the rear foot. Like Biomex and Biofusion, you get a full range of rear foot posting. So in addition to the 0-degree rear foot stabilizer, you'll also get a 2-degree post, a 4-degree post, and a 6-degree post. You'll still also get the 5mm heel raises and the PPT cushions for the heel. I will touch on the cushions kind of while I'm here at the same time. So we sell them very much, or they're labeled very much as a heel cushion, but ultimately they can be used however you want them to be used. So at the end of the day, they are a generic bit of PPT pour-on shaped into the heel. But there's no reason why you can trim the middle out, turn it into a little bit of a heel spur pad. I've known clinicians kind of trim them and shape them and use them as kind of offloading or balance pads into the forefoot. They're designed to be kind of used how you want them to be. Their primarily use obviously is as a heel cushion, but at the same time, if you've not got any extra pour-on or PPT lying around in clinic, you can quickly kind of use those and shape those for the rear foot at the same time. It only comes obviously in the one arch profile, the one rigidity. So it's only kind of 5 SKUs through Bioactive. All of the devices I'm showing you today follow our typical size curve, which is extra small through to extra large. And all of our size ranges run that size and a half at a time. So just again, as a refresher, extra small will run 3 to 4.5, small will run 5 to 6.5, 7 to 8.5, 9 to 10.5, 11 to 12.5. And that's across all of the new product launches. So then moving on to Biofusion. So Biofusion has been in the family the longest. We launched this kind of back end of March last year. It has undergone an extra change, which I will touch on in this webinar as well. So Biomex currently, in its current form, comes in both a 4-degree and a 6-degree option. You've got the 4-degree, which is in the orange shell, and you've got the 6-degree that's in the blue shell. We would typically class the current version as a medium arch profile. In June this year, we will also be launching a low arch version of the Fusion. So where Biomex, you're used to both a low arch and a medium arch version, Biofusion is going to follow that suit as well. So the product I'm going to show you today is the medium arch option, and we'll be sending out communication following the webinar on our low arch option as well. So Biofusion uses a different type of material. So it uses a material known as TPU, which stands for thermoplastic polyurethane. The great thing about TPU is that it's environmentally friendly. So the device itself is 100% biodegradable. So it won't biodegrade under anyone's foot. It just means that once the device shell is done, it can be sent off to be recycled and not end up in landfill. So it's our first fully eco-friendly shelled device. The other great thing about TPU over, say, traditional materials that we've all been accustomed to, EVA, polypropylene, nylon, they typically have a shelf life to them. We know that EVA devices will typically last anywhere between 12 months and 18 months, depending on the density. We know that polypropylene over time will compress, it will fatigue, it will fracture. TPU doesn't do that. You can literally bend TPU in half over and over again. It will always spring back to the same shape afterwards. That also doesn't mean that it's necessarily massively flexible. It still retains a good amount of functionality through that arch profile, of which, again, you can still heat mold. You can change the structure if you want to. The nice thing about TPU as a heating material, again, when you heat polypropylene shells, they tend to take longer to cool down. So if you've only got a short window to heat up, allow it to cool down to fit it to the patient, it's not the easiest thing to do with polypropylene. With TPU, it typically only gets warm where you heat the device. So if you heat mold the device in the arch profile, it only really is moldable at that arch profile. So again, it's very easy to spot heat and change. taking benefits of kind of EVA devices from that perspective. The main difference again with Biofusion over Biomex, if you're familiar with Biomex, is integrated posting. So Biomex as a shell, as we know, starts neutral, same as our new active. Obviously, they have components that you're going to be sticking onto the device, so externally adding them on. Albeit Fusion has an external post, it's integrated into the shell, so you haven't got to worry about posts moving around, posts slipping, posts kind of wearing down. It's all built into that shell as standard. As I say, we do a 4-degree option in the orange, and we do then your 6-degree option in the blue. The shell's nice and pliable, so again, should you want to cut out a first met cutout, then you can, or cut it back to the ray, then you can. A decent pair of scissors will cut that area away. If you want to use a little Dremel drill, that's fine. If you're worried about any sharp edges, just a little bit of wet and dry paper will take kind of any of those edges off. The shell or the device is designed to be used as the shell only, or you have got the option of adding top covers. And the difference that we've changed with Biofusion is not only does it come with a full length top cover, it will also come with a 3/4 length top cover. The nice thing with the 3/4 length cover is that it's fully beveled into the forefoot as well. So you haven't got that step off over the edge. All of the top covers are double-sided tape. So peel the tape off and apply that over to the top of your device. Nice thing, I suppose, from a clinical perspective is you've got the option of kind of building up a stock of top covers. You're unlikely to use both a 3/4 length and a full length cover for both of your patient groups. So you can build up kind of stock within clinic to be able to refurbish those devices. We do also now sell replacement top covers, both for Biomex and for Biofusion, only in the full length on the Fusion at the moment. But it does mean now, and we were asked for a number of, I suppose, years to kind of introduce a replacement top cover, because a lot of the time your shell is going to be fine, and it might just need that you're replacing the rear foot post and you're replacing the top cover element. In terms of longevity on Biofusion, if we're saying a polypropylene shell will typically last kind of a 3 to a 5 year period before it will start to creep or fatigue, Biofusion will hopefully kind of go 5 years plus. TPU is a relatively new material. It's obviously being used a lot kind of in that bespoke and that 3D printed world, but there isn't a huge amount of kind of longevity data. But our hope is that obviously it will outlive a typical kind of polypropylene device. We'll know it'll outlive an EVA device, and it should almost certainly outlive kind of a polypropylene and a nylon-based device as well. We just haven't got the full longevity data on it outside of that. As I mentioned, heat moldable, grindable. Posting values, you still get all the additional components, the same as we've always done with the rest of the range. So although it has a 4-degree and a 6-degree post in there, you're still going to get 2-degree rear foot posts. You're still going to get 4-degree rear foot posts. You'll still get your 6-degree rear foot posts, PPT cushions, and your heel raises. So again, one of the things that I suppose LBG have kind of been known for is that component set and that adjustability. So that kind of runs through in all of the new products that we've launched, and Biofusion is kind of no exception to that, despite it kind of already having an integrated kind of post as a standard. So then lastly into the family was kind of more our entry level based device. So I suppose we've always kind of had a range that's kind of been around that kind of 28 to 30 pound kind of trade priced element. BioBasic kind of brings us down to more of an entry level price point. So your first phase orthotic with a few kind of bits that we've taken from the BioAdvanced family. So it utilizes a medium density EVA core kind of shell, and then we've kind of trimmed that forefoot bulk out as well. So again, it's nice and low profile into the forefoot. It's a standard kind of medium density profile shell, a fairly full width hilt. So again, you can add any postings to the devices. Obviously, the BioBasic won't come with any components, but any of the components that you have from the rest of your Bio family will stick onto the device. The one thing that we have kind of brought through is that same premium top cover that all of our bioadvanced insoles have. And the reason being is we launched a range of Velcro backed PU Met domes and Met bars. So they're a PU gel. So rather than kind of EVA, they're a little bit softer and the longevity is much longer. The trouble with EVA based self-adhesive ones is the biggest battle with Met domes and Met bars is getting them in the right place. So these use a multi-directional hook and loop system. So the idea is that they will pop onto the top of your device. It doesn't matter where that force is applied, that component won't move around. But what it does mean that is if that component is in the wrong place, you can peel it off and move it into a different area until you get comfort and correct placement for your patient. If you are worried about the component kind of moving around, you can always add some self-adhesive tape or some glue to the back. If you kind of want the patient to try it initially before you go to that extent of sticking that device on, you could always pop that device on, draw around it. So if it does go into footwear that maybe has a tighter vamp where they're kind of forcing their foot in rather than being able to unlace and allow the foot to sit onto the dome, you can obviously draw around the dome so that if it moves around, your patient can kind of place that back over the top. The arch profile would kind of very similar match kind of the Bio Advanced through your Bio Basic. Again, it's an EVA shell, so you can make subtle heat molded changes. And again, they come in just a medium density through extra small through to extra large, but they're a great kind of trial insole. So if you've kind of got that patient that's umming and ahhing about going down the insole route, or you want to kind of try a simple prescription before you maybe move them on to kind of a more rigid shell, you've now got an insole within our range that kind of fits that mold a little bit. It gives you a starting temporary based or orthotic. As I said, you can do all the same clinical modifications that you can with any of our range, whether that's rear foot posting, heel raises. It's a neutral shell to begin with. So again, doesn't matter whether it's a pronated medial force or a supinated foot type and you're adding a lateral force, you've got a neutral base to start from through the Bio Basic. And again, they were all launched start of this year. So again, they're all in stock from today. So then touching on some addition-based products. So obviously all of our range, as I said, comes with various components, more aimed at kind of the rear foot. So as I say, you get your rear foot control, you get your heel raises, you get your blue PPT cushions. But again, one of the things that we felt we were kind of missing within the range was the ability to offer clinicians more adaptations kind of in the forefoot. The Bio Advanced obviously comes with a 4-degree forefoot post, but sometimes obviously that's a varus post. There's occasions that you may need a valgus post. You may need differentiating degrees. So the varus and the valgus forefoot posts comes in boxes of 8. So you get 4 pairs in each. And ultimately, again, they're graded. So your valgus posts will offer you a 2-degree option. They'll also offer you a 4-degree option and also a 6-degree option. So again, if we're looking to build that across the forefoot, they can be trimmed, shaped, heated, kind of however you want those posts to kind of sit, but they will work on any of our devices through the Bio Advanced, the Bio Kinetics, and also stick to obviously the top covers on the Biofusion if you're kind of looking to modify into the Biofusion forefoot area as well. I say you've got 3 different posting options, 2, 4, and 6 degrees from a varus and a valgus perspective. The varus ones are modeled on the Bio Advanced ones already. So the 4-degree one is kind of a carbon copy of what comes in the Bio Advanced already, but we have then added a 2-degree option and then also your 6-degree option. And again, they can be utilized in the same way. If you've got that kind of forefoot varus, you're looking to kind of, I suppose, post under the first and second Met head. Again, they'll work on all of our shells, all of our EVA devices and top covers, depending on level of control that you're looking for. Being EVA based, you can trim them, you can shape them. So if the post itself is too big, you can trim it down, you can utilize it how you kind of need to. But they are separate components that we sell as kind of a add-on now for the full range of devices. As I say, they come in box of 8s and 4 pairs per box. All self-adhesive. One of the questions I do get, and I'll kind of answer it now just while I'm talking about the double-sided tape. So sometimes people find that the components kind of move around under load, they get wet and they kind of move around. A lot of the time it's due to the double-sided tape being not as tacky as it could be. All of our components are obviously stored, and devices are stored in a warehouse, which obviously doesn't see a huge amount of daylight, is obviously temperature kind of controlled. And 9 times out of 10, they'll go to a clinical site where they'll be put into a cupboard that, again, can be a little bit cold at times. So one bit of advice I can offer is, if you're finding that you have components that do move around, aren't sticking as well as you'd kind of expect them to, just warm the tape up slightly. So before you go to fit that device, just run either a heat gun or even a hairdryer if you've got one lying around. Just warm up the tape a little bit and then apply that onto your device. You should find that will increase the adhesion rate of that component on any of our devices, whether that's Biomex, Biofusion, Bioadvanced, Bioactive. Just adding that extra little bit of heat will seal that, kind of bring the tackiness of the double-sided tape through a little bit more. So then coming on to again, a couple of our newer top cover devices. So I mentioned in the Biofusion presentation that we have now launched replacement top covers for both Biomex and Biofusion. And they're just the standard replacement top covers, same kind of 3mm EVA that you get in the packs currently. But again, as a custom lab, we kind of took heritage and we're looking at kind of how we can improve on our rigid shell offering. 2 of the most common modifications we would make from an in-lab perspective was Morton's and reverse Morton's extensions from a add-in perspective. And Biomex being our most popular rigid shell, that's where we've kind of started that family of top covers. So again, I'll just stop sharing my screen so I can hopefully show it a little bit clearer. So starting with the Morton's extension. So we can see that we've kind of built under the hallux kind of a 3mm area, 3.5mm of EVA. So we're building under that kind of joint. So if you've got that hallux rigidus patient, someone that kind of needs that little bit of relief by just lifting up that big toe ever so slightly, you've got a raised platform under the big toe joint, and then you kind of dropped away under kind of 2 to 5. Again, utilizing kind of a 3mm EVA as standard, and then it builds 3.5mm EVA on top of that. Whereas obviously your reverse Morton's therefore is your opposite. So again, we're looking at that patient where you're looking to drive big toe function. They may have that kind of hallux limitus. You may be looking just to elevate 2 to 5 due to bony prominences. Maybe they just need a little bit more cushioning under 2 to 5. So you've got that option where we're raised again 3.5mm up, and obviously the big toe area is then pressed, or you've kind of got that recess under where that big toe joint would sit to allow kind of 2 to 5 to be raised ever so slightly. Again, with top covers, I will kind of mention it's going to be a staged approach, but we are looking at changing the way that the double-sided tape comes off of the top covers. So at the moment, they're a pre-cut and pre-fitted tape. So you can kind of see through here that there isn't really anywhere to pull off. Obviously, a lot of the time they come off fairly easily, but sometimes there isn't really a starting point. So you can see here there is an overlapping edge. So it makes it far easier to pull that double-sided tape away. So that's again something that we'll be introducing over kind of the next sort of 2 to 4 months. As stock starts to run down, all devices will be replaced and top covers will be replaced with that slightly wider component of double-sided tape to give you a far easier starting point to make it a little bit less fiddly on kind of peeling that double-sided tape back. Brilliant. So before I come to the Q&A, I'm also going to just introduce you to our new Biologic tool, which some of you may have, again, had a play around with on the website. I'm not going to go through it in too much detail today. We plan on doing a slightly separate webinar on it to kind of talk through it in a little bit more detail. But we put together a new, I suppose, AI-powered insole selector. It's aimed at clinicians that maybe are just starting their journey into biomechanics, or kind of clinicians that want to become a little bit familiar with our range. So it kind of looks at 3 core clinical tests, which all of you should be kind of familiar with. And then based around that, it kind of recommends different devices from our range as to where kind of they sit, whether it's more of a rigid shell or more an EVA shell. So typically the first question that it'll kind of always ask is, what type of footwear type are we going into? Because again, depending on whether it's a dress shoe, whether it's a trainer, it might be more a slim profiled shell. It might be that kind of an EVA device, full length, bio-advanced is going to be fine. For this purpose, I'll choose trainer. I'll pick a shoe size. Again, I'll just choose small. So then the first question it's going to ask you, again, we understand clinicians some prefer to work with EVA devices, some prefer to work with rigid devices, some are happy to kind of work with across all different material types. So depending on whether you have a preference with EVA, a preference with rigid, kind of whether you're happy to us to suggest from our full spectrum of devices, we'll tick no and full range. We're then looking at shoe shank rigidity. Again, the reason this is important is if we're looking at a flexible shoe and you've got a low density bio-advanced insole, if the shoe can bend, the insole in it is going to bend. So typically, if you've got a flexible shoe, generally the higher the density or the more rigid the shell is better going to suit that patient profile if you're maintaining kind of functional control through the midfoot and the forefoot. First question it will kind of ask you from a clinical aspect is, what's the patient's arch profile doing? So is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? The reasoning kind of behind this is it's looking at our device profile specifically. So it's looking at, is it going to suggest a low arch biomech? Is it going to suggest a medium arch biomech? But we'll tick low and we'll go forward. Foot mobility. So typical test in terms of how much foot mobility have they got? Do they have a typical kind of normal range, or is it kind of unable to move at all? If you do tick poor at this point, it will only ever suggest a BioSoft or a BioSoft Plus product, because it's going to assume that there's not a lot of foot mobility there. They're not going to tolerate even kind of a medium density EVA. They're definitely therefore not going to tolerate a rigid based shell. So to give us kind of a bit more spectrum, I'm going to tick normal at this point and I'll click next. Next one, as I touched on in the presentation, supination resistance is a great one for working out what density we're going down the route of. So is it easy to kind of resupinate that foot? If it is, it's going to suggest more a low, medium density based orthotic. Moderate's going to suggest kind of that medium density EVA. Unable, it's going to suggest more from kind of that moderate to high EVA product, and then more kind of from that rigid shell family. We're then looking at calcaneal stance position. So this is bringing in the rear foot posting factor. So is the rear foot stance position neutral? Is it everted? Is it maximally everted? Is it inverted? Now we're talking about adding a medial rear foot post. We're adding a lateral rear foot post. So we'll just choose everted for this purpose. It will then ask you just a couple of other questions. As we said, the BioAdvance comes with heel raises. It comes with heel cushions. So these two questions are kind of aimed at kind of utilizing the components within the pack. I'll say no to limb length discrepancy, but I will add left heel pain just so it can show you kind of how it rationales the kind of reasoning at the end. So if we click next at this point, it's going to suggest two different types of devices. So it's going to recommend BioMX and it's going to recommend BioFusion. And the reason it's recommended those two devices is based around those kind of tests that we've utilized. So we observed that it was a moderate supination resistance test. So therefore, it needs the higher of the density of the BioAdvanced. It's also noted that we mentioned that it has an everted heel type. So therefore, it's suggesting that we add a medial rear foot post. It's also noted that we mentioned that we had heel pain on the left foot. So therefore, it's also added in there that you could add the heel cushion. Obviously, BioFusion, it's mentioned that it hasn't added to add any additional rear foot posting because we know BioFusion comes with 4 degrees built in as standard. It is very much a tool. We're not saying that this is for clinical judgment. The kind of disclaimer is that the tool doesn't have the patient in front of us. It doesn't have further biomechanical testing that you may kind of utilize in clinic. Therefore, it's there to kind of build confidence and kind of help clinicians work through kind of our range of devices to see where maybe they're thinking of going, to see whether kind of the rationale kind of fits with kind of our portfolio of devices. It's there on the website for everyone to access. Feel free to have a play around with it. It's very much there, and we're taking, I suppose, open feedback on it. You can either get to it directly from the homepage, just click the clinical selector banner, or the other place you can access it is from education and pressing the clinical insole selector tool.